Well, good morning. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. Are you ready to live under oppression? That may seem like a funny question, but it's one that I suggest you take seriously. Uh, Preppers, for the most part, have a tendency to kind of respond to the news of the day. And we've seen the fluctuations over the years depending on what political party is in power at the time. And sometimes, the preparedness world will say, well, things are going bad and we really need to up our preps. And other times, a change, will occur politically, and they'll say, okay, well, we've got some breathing room here, and a lot of people will fall back. Well, I want to talk about the danger of that, and because I've seen it happen so often, and the very real danger of oppression. Before we get to that, and if you're new to us, you'll find that I almost always have a couple of announcements up front because we have a lot going on here, and I like to share these things. I put one up. Was it last night? I think it was on the Patreon channel about lessons from the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. If you're not familiar with me, I have experience in that area, and I thought that I share it because those people have been the Irish have been under the boot of Great Britain or England for 800 years, and they have become very adept at living under oppression and dealing with it. I'm not going to get into detail with that here. I don't do that on the YouTube channel. I save all that stuff. All the IRA stuff, the mafia stuff, all that stuff is on the Patreon channel. But there are some excellent lessons in there. If you're not with us on Patreon, I always invite you. I say there's so much more over there. If you're truly interested in preparedness, the link is down below. Just cost you $1 a month or $5 a month, depending on what level you want to join at whatever is right for you. But that information is over there. And I do suggest, as I'll get into this, why you need to be preparing to live under oppression. I always get a couple of questions when I talk about that as to do I have suggestions on what books to read, movies to watch, things like that. During the video that I shot about it last night, I was trying to remember the names of some movies, and I haven't gone back and tried to remember. I see them in my mind. Most of the movies about it are pretty bad, to be honest. There are some good ones, but there were a couple of books that I would recommend if you're truly interested in learning about that situation. And it goes clear back to the Easter Rising of 1916, when the the more recent push for Irish independence and getting out underneath the boot of England really started. And that was the Easter Rising of 1916. And after that came the rebellion and the civil wars, and then finally shook out into what became present day Ireland, where there are still problems over there. And I was involved somewhat in that. One of the books that I would recommend is by Tom Berry, Guerrilla Days in Ireland. These books that I'm going to give you, they're not like the books that movies are made out of. These get down into the details of exactly what was going on, what they did, why things happened, and you will see. If you are a student of history and if you're a real student of what's going on in our world now, you will see the parallels of that. So this is a very good book, Guerrilla Days in Ireland. And another one that I might suggest, and like I say, this is for the ones who really want to understand it, get into it, and learn a lot. And these are both. That was from a guerrilla leader in the Irish struggles. So it's not like somebody reporting it from the outside. This one, on another man's wound. And I have to remind myself, I have to put on my glasses here to remind myself of who wrote it. Ernie O'Malley, A Personal History of Ireland's War of Independence. O'Malley was he was a medical student in Dublin in 1916, I believe, when all this started. He didn't really care much about what was going on in Ireland, but when he saw the brutality of the oppression of the British government on the Irish people, it got him involved in it. His anger at what was happening got him involved, and he joined the IRA, and finally, I think by the time he was in his early 20s, 23, 24 years old. He lived until the 1950s sometime, but by that time he was a commandant in the IRA and reporting directly to. Hang on just a second, somebody's calling me. Well, be right back. Okay. So by the time he was in there, he was reporting directly to Michael Collins. If you're familiar with Michael Collins, don't that movie? There's a movie about Michael Collins. Like most movies, there's a bit of truth in it, and then it's all wrapped up in other stories that, for whatever reason, right? And a lot of those guys, I mean, these were young people who became involved in that, and they did it because they had an understanding of the oppression that their people were suffering under. Okay, so anyway, those are a couple of books that I would recommend. There's a third that was sent to me by one of the guys over in Ireland years ago, and I don't have it right here. It's probably in one of my bookcases upstairs, and it's called Bandit Country. It's about County Armagh, and it's a good one to read. So there you have 3 recommendations. Now, a couple of things that I also wanted to share as many of you know, that I'm putting together a patch board. A lot of people have sent me patches from their law enforcement and military and first responder organizations. I haven't got it up yet, but I'm about to the point. Hopefully I'll get started on that in about a month. So I had a couple of the guys who came to the gathering a couple of weeks ago that we had here in Lenexa, Kansas. And actually, one's from Mark Harrison. He mailed this to me later. He didn't have them with him then, but here are Mark's. He sent me his patches from 5th Group Special Forces, and his patch when he got out, and he was on the Mount Juliet, Tennessee Police Department, and so he gave me some of those patches. How nice of you! Thank you, Mark. Those are gonna have good positions in my patch board. And then we have another, I won't identify him, but another highly esteemed viewer and Patreon member who gave me his patch from the Oakland County, Michigan Sheriff's Department. So we have those. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that. This patch board is going to look pretty nice when I finally get around to putting it up, right? Okay. All right, living under oppression. I've been talking about the importance of developing the ability to learn under oppression. I've been talking about this for several years. And whenever I talk about it, I always get a few people, stomping their little feet and saying, I'm not going to live under oppression. I'm going to get my little boom boom and fight it out on the front step of my house or whatever, which of course is a ridiculous thing to say. It's a ridiculous thing to think, let alone a ridiculous thing to say. And when I talk about living under oppression, the 2 groups that I have always pointed out have been the Irish Republican movement, the IRA, and then the Irish Republican movement as a whole, and then organized crime, specifically the mafia. Okay, now mafia. That's I use that term simply because it's easily understood. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. I've done videos on that. But both of these groups, and they came at it from slightly different ways. The IRA and the Irish Republican movement, pretty much remaining separate from their oppressor and continuing to fight them. The Cosa Nostra Indrangheta, Neapolitan Camorra, the Corsican Union Corse or Corse Milieu, they all were groups that, although many of them became criminal later on, started as a way to provide for themselves, their families, and protect themselves against an oppressive government. Okay, so now you kind of see where I'm coming from that. If you want particulars on that, I only address those over on Patreon. Excuse me, I got to clear my throat. Okay, but why am I addressing this now? Because I think it's important for people to think about this. Everybody in the preparedness world has always thought about, oh, civil war, revolution, this and that and the other thing. And it's about having a big solution to the problem. And all of a sudden, the problem is overcome. We come out the other side of it, uh, you know, cheering ourselves on as a result of our victory over the oppressor. Well, the American Revolution, often it goes back to that. That's not always the case, because we had another war of independence that happened in the 1860s, although that it's not framed in that way because history is written by the winners. Okay, and I talk about a lot of that in my books. Most people are painfully and shamefully uninformed about that war that they mistakenly call the Civil War. It wasn't a civil war at all. You've heard me say that before if you've been with me. Again, don't have time to get into all of that, but it was essentially a separation of some states from a country that had become oppressive to a section of the country. The federal government attacked the South. I'm going to get somebody come on here with some hate on that, who everything they know is from their high school history class, telling me what a horrible person I am. Doesn't matter. The truth is the truth. And that attempt to separate from the federal government, the United States of America, was unsuccessful. And the people who tried to do that were, they suffered greatly. The entire South was destroyed. A whole section of the United States, they were forced, they surrendered. I get it. Lee surrendered. They were forced to remain in the Union. The South would have done much better, to be honest, if their efforts had been successful, but they weren't. That's a lesson. Okay, what happens when the efforts to separate yourself or to throw off the yoke of the oppressor is unsuccessful? And it can be horrible. I mean, the South, to be honest, has still not fully recuperated from the devastation the federal government enforced on it. Excuse me, let me take another sip. So how does this apply to us today? Well, even though I know a lot of people have great hope, and I'm not going to make this political, even though a lot of people have great hope that Trump is going to win the next election, I would caution against being too sure of that. It's my hope, that's my political leanings, because the other side, the Democrats, always want to take away more of our constitutional rights, more of our freedoms. I don't have to go into it with you all, okay? They essentially have been in the process of a systematic destruction of what our country was supposed to be and stands for. You know that. And I go back to like what I've read on the American Reversion Channel. Maybe I'll do it again pretty soon. The goals of the American Communist Party. They've pretty much been successful in all of those. And that essentially is what the Democrat Party of today is. That's sad to say, because I was born and raised a Democrat. Much like Reagan, I say that I didn't leave them, they left me, as many other people have found that as the Democrat Party became more socialist and more progressive, and now borderline communist, we see that it now has become an enemy of what America is supposed to be. Simple as that. And so while a lot of people, I think, have a lot of hope that Trump is going to win, and essentially they thought that it was locked up, and I think I thought that at first. And it may be true as a result of the attempted assassination. It may be true. But I don't know that, and you don't know that. Nobody knows what's going to happen. I've heard that a Secret Service whistleblower has said that he's sure that there's going to be another assassination attempt. I think a lot of us said that right after it happened. They didn't get him this time. They're not going to give up. It's the only way that they are going to be sure, they think, to win this next election. Now, what the result would be, I think it's hard to say. Everybody can have an opinion, but opinions are just that, and they're based as much on our opinion, our information we have, but a lot of times an opinion is based on hopes and dreams too, right? And we have to be careful about that. You have to prepare for the possible eventuality of a Kamala Harris or whoever they replace her with, if they replace her, winning. And if they do, the destruction that we've seen of this country, the destruction of our international reputation, and therefore our influence in the world, which the less influence we have, the more dangerous it is for us. That's the importance of having positive influence in the world around you. You make the world safer for yourself, right? But that has been collapsing because of what they see as weak leadership. It's the withdrawal of Afghanistan. It's the emptying of our strategic oil reserves. It's all of those things. It's a matter of trying to switch us over to renewable energy. They're systematically, as I'm sure I don't have to convince you, trying to destroy our economy. They're trying to destroy our military. They're trying to destroy our reputation in the world. And we know where all this seriously started. It was with Obama. Remember his apology tour around the world, right? We're sorry, we're America, and we've done all these bad things, and we are so sorry. And he's bowing to other foreign leaders, okay? And he got reelected. That's one of the things I want to point out. He did all this stuff and was reelected. How that didn't make every American citizen vomit is beyond me, because I'm sure it did you just as it did me. But that's what we have to be careful of, is we know that half of this country doesn't feel the way we do. And there's always a possibility that things are going to go against us, against America. And you have to be ready for it. So anyway, to complete what I was saying, we see the weakness, a growing weakness of our country in the world, which is dangerous for us. They're bringing in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of foreigners into our country that we know a large percentage of those are criminals, are foreign agents, are, well, you know, right? I don't have to explain it to you. Why would they do that? To destroy the country. And they think they're going to be able to, first off, they hate what America stands for. Obama hated what America stands for. Biden just wants what's best for Biden. Kamala Harris is the most liberal, I would say communist, senator when she was in the Senate, and she remains that, although she's trying to act like a moderate now. And people will be fooled. See, that's the thing. A lot of people will be fooled. And it's just like this, what is this, these groups? White dudes for Harris? What a ridiculous thing. If you are on Patreon, you saw we addressed that. But they may win, and if they do, they have set everything up for some of the worst oppression that we have seen in this country since the Civil War under the British and the South under Reconstruction, as they call it, right? Under the North. And that oppression destroyed essentially an entire people. So what do you have to do? What is it? First off, you have to accept that this may happen. Because unless you accept that it may happen, you're not going to prepare for it. And, I'm not one of those channels, if you're new to this, I'm not one of those that needs to tell you every week, get some rice, get some beans, get some this, get some that, get some flashlights, get some batteries, get some ammo, get some this. Okay. Hopefully you know all of that. What we talk about here more is getting your head right, accepting the situation, realizing the possibilities, okay, identifying and accepting real potential threats. And this is a real potential threat. I would call it, almost. I mean, it's not a clear and present danger, but it's getting close. And until and unless you accept that that's a possibility, you're not going to prepare for it. So my first piece of advice here is realize that that's a possibility. It is a possibility that there could be a Harris or whoever, or a Big Mike, or who knows who. It doesn't matter who, because the puppet master's in back pulling the strings. Okay, Baracko is back there pulling. Who would have thought that? But that's the truth. So it doesn't matter who's the face. It matters who's pulling the strings. And if the Democrats are able to win in November, I think you're going to see an oppression here like you've never seen and never imagined, except in the wildest paranoia, we think, of those who have been kind of beating this drum for a while. So what do you do about it? And then I'll add this too. If they don't take back Congress, they most certainly will in the off-year elections. And then I think we're done for a long time. We are done for a long time. I mean, do you remember before Newt Gingrich orchestrated with other new freshman representatives in the Republican Party, the contract with America? Until that's what brought about the first Republican majority in the House of Representatives in 40 years. 40 years. And the Senate, for the most part. 40 years. If the Democrats win in this election, I can see us going into another 40 years of total Democrat control. Now, I want you to try to imagine what that might mean. We hear a lot of the 2A people talking about how, everything's, the threats against the Second Amendment. Hey, I've said this many times before. Back in the 70s, there were only 3 states that allowed concealed carry at all. And now, pretty much all of them, I believe. Okay, so things have not gone backwards since the 70s when it comes to 2A or other things. Look at the decisions we've gotten as far as Roe v. Wade. Look at the decisions of Bruin. So things have moved very nicely towards the more conservative position. But this election could change it all. And if you know anybody who's out there who says they won't vote, congratulations, you know somebody who's part of the problem, and that's you. Man, I don't know what to tell you. You're part of the problem. Okay. Oh, I know that you'll say that voting doesn't matter. Well, how do you know? You don't do it. And you're just you're making yourself feel better for not participating at the basest level of citizenship. So good for you. You don't want to put yourself out there and do a little bit for what you know to be what you should know to be right, and you make yourself feel better by condemning other people for voting, saying it doesn't matter. Congratulations, big on you, warrior. Did you hear? I heard somewhere lately that probably a third of Christians don't vote, and yet, really, a third of gun owners don't vote. Well, they're the problem. They are the problem. But let's get back and not think about that problem, because they're the ones that could bring about the oppression. Never blame your enemy. Blame the people who are supposed to be on your side who aren't pulling on the rope. Okay. The oppression could be great. There could be wholesale pushes for confiscation. The economy will go in the tank. They will use their new powers to. Do you remember all of the executive orders that Obama put out? They'll further destroy the military. They will destroy America's position in the world. They will further inflate the economy. They will pump more funny money into the economy, which is inflation, which then causes rising prices. They want to turn this into a so-called workers' paradise, otherwise known as communism. And that is, there's some rich people on top and a whole bunch of poor people downstream. That is the potential oppression we are looking at if the Democrats win this next election. So, what do? After you have finally accepted that this may happen, and you are determined to go out there and do your part to try to keep it from happening, well, then you prepare. Okay? And that means all of those things that we do when it comes to preparedness. Okay, I know I could go through the simplistic list of get food, get water, get ammo, get this, get medical supplies, get the, but it all comes down to those basics. It starts with those basics. Okay, food, water, shelter, defense, people. Simple as that. Medical. Okay, but you need to go beyond that. You need to go as far beyond that as you possibly can. Now, how far beyond that can you go? And I know people who have gone well beyond it. And what they have essentially done is what I write about in my book. So you want the whole, I'll throw my books in here for those of you who may not know me. I'm not really a YouTube guy, as I say. I'm a writer. And I've taught preparedness for 40 years, 50 years, something like that. Okay. But I'm not just a person who gets on here who's kind of recently discovered the need for preparedness. Okay, it's kind of been my lifestyle for most of my life. And if you want the complete plan, if you want to know how to prepare yourself to live under oppression, I don't suggest the IRA way, really. I mean, unless you want to be at war all the time. And I'm going to I'll probably do this on Patreon. I'm going to offer a whole nother way to approach this. Okay. And it's somewhere between the IRA way and the organized crime way. But to get this, and I'll tell you about it when I get ready to do that video. But the total plan for preparing for, surviving, and rebuilding after a total collapse of everything is right here. Right here. It's the Stonemont series. These are my books. People ask me questions about preparedness. I say, you can't ask me a question that I haven't already answered in detail in this series of books. Okay. The first one came out in 2017, The Reversion. To my surprise, it sold great all over the world. It's The Reversion, The Revival, The Renewal, An Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, Hostages to Fortune, and the newest one that just came out, On Wings Like Eagles. This explains exactly how you separate yourself. How do I get it, Steve? I'll tell you in a minute. How you separate yourself. And this is key to being able to survive and continue to function under oppression. You have to separate yourself from those external systems over which you have little or no control. Your food supply, your water supply, your energy supply, such as this. And to an extent, depending on what happens, government. Never rely on government. If you think government's your friend, I know you don't. Okay. You get these. You can get them on Amazon, or you can get them through our website, stonemont.us. You can get them individually. You can get them as a set. We now have a one-click option. You can buy the whole set at one click for a nice little discount. And when you get that, when you do that way, you get, we throw this in the Stonemont notebook also. But this will give you the complete plan. This will answer questions you haven't even thought about asking yet. Plus, it's a great story. Great story. Love, hate, cannibalism, slavery, all sorts of things. But really, it's a matter of self-sustainability and being able to live well outside any external system. That's what you need to do. That's what you need to develop the ability to do. But the first step is to accept that this could happen. And I think that's a step that a lot of people have. They give lip service to it. People like to talk about it. Oh, the horrible things that's going to happen. But then what do they actually do about it? Not much, because they haven't really internalized it. They've just kind of, I call it, it's splashing around in the shallow end. Oh, isn't this fun? Talking about what horrible things might happen. But they never go in the deep end. And they never go below the surface to really see what the real threats are, or to prepare themselves with some depth. Does that make sense? We are approaching a time, it really is a watershed time for the United States. If you're living in another country, I know we have a lot of viewers from Australia and Canada and Europe. Probably the same thing is happening in your countries. Mike Morton down in Colombia. I don't know. Let me know how things are down there, Mike. But I know a lot of Americans are thinking about moving out of America. Not me. I just this is where I'm going to make my stand. And probably most of you too. But we have to first recognize, accept that this is a real possibility, as much as we hate to admit it, and prepare for that eventuality. Prepare to live under real oppression, which means establishing a total underlying alternative economy, lifestyle, everything, culture. Okay. There's ways to do that. I'm not sure how much I'm not going to get into that a lot, as I said, on YouTube, but I've just told you what to do, what you need to do. Okay. It's not like I'm telling you what to do. That's what you need to do. Then you either need to figure it out, or I'll talk more about it on Patreon. But this is where the lessons from organized crime and the IRA come into play so well, because these are people who have specialized in living under oppression. And if you're going to have any hope, you need to develop those skills. And then if things go our way in November, good. The worst thing that can happen is you're now more prepared than you would have been, right? But don't ever relax, because the pendulum always swings, right? And if you wait, if you say, well, that was kind of entertaining to listen to Steve for a couple of minutes, and it's kind of, I got my excitement up for a minute, or I think he's just crazy what he's talking about, and then you forget it, and then we see ourselves as a result of the election going into oppression. You're going to wish you'd started now. I'm not going to say it's going to be too late then, but it's going to be a lot later than it should be, and you won't be able to prepare as much starting then as you would if you start now, because the economy is going to go, inflation is going to go crazy, the economy is going to be crashing, it's going to be a lot tougher. Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Like I say, if you're not with us on Patreon, come on over. The link is down below. If you want my books, you can get them through Amazon or from me. Those links are also down below. Amazon gets them to you fast. I get them to you signed. I get them to you slower. I'm almost caught up with all the books. I've spent, like I said, the last 4 or 5 days just signing books and getting them out. People have been waiting on their sets of books for a month or more. For some more, almost 2 months, because we were waiting for our shipment to get in for the new book. So if you want to get them from me, I love to do that, because I love my relationship with my readers. I get to sign them for you, write a little note in there, and we'll get them out to you as soon as we can. Okay. But whatever you do, realize oppression could be coming, and how well you do living under that oppression depends entirely on how much you've prepared for it. Okay. Like we say, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. So get out there and do something, and I'll probably talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.